ran a desk.
Yes. I actually thought that was great. He talked about like being bad at everything in this basically military preparedness camp. Like, it's basically...
I mean, because that's what Israel has to have.
Yeah, they were trying to convince Jewish kids from around the world to come to camp there and then ultimately come back and enroll in the Jewish army.
Because birthright, I mean, that's the whole point of birthright. I don't know if...
Sure.
If you guys know what birthright is. But it's basically, convincing people to come back to Israel so that they fall in love with the place and want to stay there and spend time there. And
not necessarily join the military.
Not
but then
just,
again,
in that case,
let's be honest, if you come back and live there and over a certain age, it's mandatory.
You're going to join the military.
You're going to join the military. And that was a really funny, well-structured one. That was great.
And wasn't so goddamn annoying. I found those children so annoying.
I agree, but you didn't have to hear a single child in that sequence.
Yes, exactly. That's true.
It was an adult talking about his singular experience being bad at everything in this very macho camp, and then finally finding his place where he was mincing around as what he admits is a ridiculous stereotype of a gay character.
Let's play that bit where he talks about the other Israelis coming up to him and saying, "Oh, let's kiss."
This is my favorite part, and I want us to talk about it afterwards. This is what he had to say after he performed a humorous homoerotic kiss in a, I guess, play production they were doing. Then this started happening.
Meir or Shaul or whatever would come up to me and say, "It's very funny the way you do this makeout thing. Show me do it. Let's do it." And the first few times I would do it, I mean, I guess part of me was like flattered that like the macho future Sayeret Matkal guys were into me in any way. But after a while, it was just so weird. I'd just be like, "Look, Shaul, I'm just not going to do that. I don't do that anymore. I'm just not going to do it." And they'd be like, "Why not do it? It's very funny. That's all. It's not for anything, but just the funny."
So here's my question. Were these dudes just macho gay dudes?
Right? That's what I was thinking too, is like, "Hey, bro, let's just kiss." And then he's like, "Oh, I pulled my hand down. Well, we could just kiss for real now." I'm not going to try to do an Israeli accent.
No, it's for funny, not for real, for funny. Yeah. I was thinking, these guys were definitely gay. Yeah. Not all of them, but the ones who approached him had to be.
Bro,
they were curious.
We just take our pants off. Come on, we just have some fun with the pants off.
Brandon, I'm told sexuality is a spectrum. So maybe they weren't gay. Maybe they were just experimental.
You're told that? Are people just coming to your door?
Oh, yeah, because I still
knocking?
don't really believe it, but I am told that regularly.
Well, you don't believe in science.
Well, no, I do not believe in science. Yes, science. The hard science of
sexuality.
Sexuality is a spectrum.
Hard science. Mm-hmm. A lot of studies.
It's hard right now, bro.
Yeah. Oh.
Yep.
Hey, have you been kissing Israelis?
Okay, so as I said that, I just turned my head. I wasn't really looking to see what reaction I was going to get from Doug. I wasn't thinking about it. Just trying to give equal attention to everybody. And Doug looked so fucking disappointed in us. Yeah. And I remember just at that moment I thought, I wonder if that's what the listener's doing as well. Just going, I have to stop listening to this podcast. They're so puerile.
Well, the only thing I would say about that part of that segment, the camp, which great, all of it's fine, good storytelling, all that. It also went on a little too long for me, but there's also that part of me that's okay. Well, this guy, much as we've talked about, I think in the past about memory and how stories change, and maybe
Malcolm Gladwell, yeah.
Suddenly, it's not just one kid who wanted to try the experimental fake kiss, but it's everybody, and everybody wants to kiss.
Right.
And it was just a little too much.
Made him sort of the star of his own story. But I think the thing that I really want to talk about is the final segment of the episode where it's the young ladies talking to the Ouija board.
Yeah.
And just the competition.
I couldn't.
Right. This was kind of a segment about these young ladies being on the eve of major decisions that are going to be made at the camp about who is going to be kind of in leadership positions.
Correct.
Among these very young girls. Right. Prefect for their segment of the camp. I think they were color blue, white.
Yes, it was the color wars they kept calling them.
I mean, honestly, all of this was
gobbledygook.
I was just going to say, you guys, it was like listening to Giant Bombcast again, where I'm like, I'm having trouble even following what they're talking about.
And I was getting more and more angry with them that they were so passionate and cared so deeply about what was fucking nonsense. and I had to keep telling myself, they're girls.
Sure.
They're literally girls.
They're kids. Yes, exactly.
And everything is so exciting and important, but I just hated them so much, guys. I hated them so much.
Definite shades of Getting Curious then.
But that segment was responsible for my favorite quote out of both episodes, which was but it's pizza night.
Let's play that bit. Let's play that right now.
Great. Well, yeah, this is what it sounded like.
Jamie, don't eat it tonight.
But it's pizza night.
And I got to tell you, I had a favorite quote too. When a big part, I didn't go to camp. And a big part of other kids going to camp for me was the ghost stories they'd come back with.
Right.
Okay, so two things about that. One, my favorite quote was when they were just kind of running through all the ghost stories, and this is what two older girls say to two younger girls who are obviously with some fear, questioning. But they talk about these young boys. Well, two great quotes here. One's a quote from a kid who they've just tried to say Bloody Mary 40 times to see if a baby appears, and one of the little kids says this.
Crap, it does. Turn it off!
And it fucking had me on the floor when I heard that. But also, Ira Glass, and sometimes you don't realize maybe the other interpretations of what you're saying, says this.
I squeeze into the tiny bathroom with 12 10-year-old boys.
You just can't throw out, I squeeze myself into a bathroom with 10 young boys quite as easily as he did. But this is the other thing I have to say. They go into a long description of a legend called Turtle Man.
Yeah.
About a very mean counselor. And it's great hearing the kid logic as they try to justify it.
Yeah, that was fun.
He was smoking in bed. I guess you could back then because the laws were different. It was very funny.
4th of July, he comes out.
He tells this full description, right, that it's this very mean counselor, and they decide they're going to play a prank on him. He's just awful to the kids year after year, and they're going to play a prank, and they're going to put fireworks under his bed. And then he was smoking in bed, and it lit them on fire, and he was horrifically burned, went running out of the cabin, flaming into the lake, and now every year it comes out. This is point for point, The Burning, a camp slasher movie. The only thing different is I believe he's a mean janitor that's hated by everyone.
Oh, interesting.
And this is exactly the plot, point for point, of The Burning.
And I'm not surprised because one of the things that I do remember doing when I was older was lying to kids at camps and stuff
fun.
like that. Yeah. You just lie to because you know how easy it is to spread rumors and they become like wildfire. Just these huge, engulfing flames throughout the camp of all these people telling these stories because kids they don't fact checked, they don't care, they enjoy the story.
Sure.
And so I think that's really fun about kids in general. Is that you can just lie to them with wanton abandon.
It was also kind of sweet. The girls, when you'd hear one of the young girls go, but is it true? She's like, no, it's not true.
Yeah, they pointed that out.
He says they take, over like 2 minutes, take every possible position on whether the legend is true or not. But yeah, that little kid who says, crap, it doesn't work. That was my absolute favorite quote. Crap, it doesn't work. That's so good. Anyway, so we were not camp people, and it gave us, as you say, it's another thing that they do well, right? They give all three of us non-camp people this window into it. But, Doug, it did an important thing for you, too. It's taken this childhood desire that's really stayed in as an undercurrent in your life.
An unrequited.
Right. You've now listened to it and went, this unrequited desire that I had, I'm glad I didn't do it now.
Right, which makes it a very successful podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, so which is why it's had 20 years of...
Yeah. I got to say, though, the part I didn't like the most out of that segment were the call-ins. The people with their own stories.
interesting.
Okay, well, talk to us about that. So there was I guess they, probably with a previous episode, put out, hey, if you've had an experience at summer camp, call in. And people did. And there was kind of a theme there as well.
Right.
That extreme educational, almost... plays that were put on for these kids that they didn't aware that they were not aware they were in the middle of a play, and they were insanely traumatic.
I mean, you'd think I when I was listening to it, I thought, oh, they're telling a story that is real and horrifying, and then when I find out that it's actually put on by the camps, it's child abuse.
Right.
That to me, having men in white robes come and burn a cross at your camp and not telling the kids that it's all fake is child abuse. That's real trauma. That's terrifying. Because
No,
I don't know.
agree, yeah.
Do you guys remember that part?
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
no,
And
Brandon,
coming
it's
with guns?
insane that adults, and you got it from, okay, this Jewish camp is insane, they did this. Then the next one, this Christian camp,
Right.
who men with
guns coming in.
Guns brought someone on stage, held a gun to him and said, who here is, a devoted Christian to suit their faith? Okay, so there is, we've learned a theme here that these kind of religious-based camps, obviously not all of them, but two different people with obviously went to very different kinds of camps.
diverse
One she
faith.
said was kind of a left-wing socialist Jewish camp somewhere in wherever the hell she was in
I don't
Minnesota or
recall.
Wisconsin or somewhere in the North Midwest, did basically the exact same thing as what the other woman described as a church camp, which was you are going to have people violently assail your faith.
Right.
And you're going to have to stand up to them. And here's the issue with that. Do either of you, we've all been alive quite a while, particularly if you add up our advanced age and increasing sexual decline, a long time. Do any of you remember an American story, this high profile, because it would be, we'd all know about it, story, about a camp being overrun by evil people with guns?
Oh.
I don't.
No, of course not.
Yet these camps were convinced that they had to prepare these campers for this, or that this general idea that your faith is going to put you on really in the line of fire, I guess.
Well, as
Yeah.
we remember from the other episode that we reviewed, there was a man who ran around a mall with 2 knives asking people if they were Muslim
Sure.
and then stabbing them if
oh,
they
no.
weren't.
Violence takes place in our society all the
Yes.
time. I meant at summer camp.
Oh no!
because
Yeah,
these were all summer
only
camp stories.
in the Friday the 13th movies do I know of
Right.
a summer
Slashers,
camp happening.
it's happening
Yeah,
left
Sleepaway
and
Camp,
right.
The Burning.
The Burning, right? Friday the 13th.
Yeah,
for sure.
But it seems like these things only exist. But remember that there was a big movement to have horror houses, Christian horror houses.
Yes, I remember
where people
that.
would have to walk through and see
Right.
babies be eaten by
Right.
atheists and all kinds of nonsense
Sure.
like that. And so I think that for some reason people of at a certain time period believe that the best thing they could do to protect these children.
And by the way, as an atheist, that's so offensive because it's been like 15 years since I've eaten a baby.
I mean, here's the thing: it's really hard to get your hands on a baby to eat. Most of
Very
the time,
hard.
Parents
Yes.
want to keep them,
I know.
and let me tell you,
We
they
did-
taste
And,
great.
and Brandon, that's why that was so ridiculous.
Dem's good eating.
Dem's is good.
Dem's
it's
fine
Brandon, it's the
vittles.
other white meat, I'm told.
We did as kids. We did like a day camp thing, but it was, I think, for my brother and my 2 sisters, it was ended up being one day. I don't even know if we went back the second day, and it was the religious scare you type of camp.
No
Right.
shit.
Literally, people, walking door to door, knocking on the door. Hey, you have children. Would you like to send them to our camp? It's,
Oh,
Christian-based faith, whatever it is. And
Right.
my mom was like, "Yep, sure, take them."
right. Yeah,
And,
get rid of the kids out of the house. Fantastic.
Bus shows up, put us on a bus that took us. I distinctly recall it being across town, not like down the street, but
Right.
truly where I thought, I don't know where I am. But
Right.
at the same time, and this was before we moved out to the country, which means I was probably in first or second grade.
Okay, it's pretty darn
maybe
young.
third. As the
Boy, it was a
oldest.
real different time back then, wasn't it?
And that's
that
what I'm saying, yeah.
Doug's mom's like, yep, my 6-year-old, 7-year-old, just fucking take him. I don't know where he's going. Sure.
And of course, the one thing she's thinking, because my older sister, who is 3 years older than me, and then my brother is a year older, and then she's like, well, the 4 of you are together, and we actually had this.
You got a
conversation.
gang, yeah.
We had this conversation at one of the holiday family gatherings where we kind of all just like. We're maybe a little more angry about this with my
Sure.
mom than we probably should have been, but we all had the
No,
same
poor Lita.
traumatic experience where the first thing they did was immediately separated the
Right,
four
of
us,
course.
Right.
And then it was the fear, and I even now I remember the stuff like, well, do you want your sister to die? Is that what you're saying?
Right.
If you don't love God, then your sister's going to die.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I'm like, wait, whoa, even at that age, and I remember just thinking, this was the scariest thing.
It's
ever.
super intense.
Right.
If you guys
now
ever watched
that was
Hallelujah!
scary and traumatizing. These people had armed men.
Yeah.
The one girl of the Jewish camp. This must have gone on for a while because she said then at night we would start wearing. So this was days black makeups when we went from. And by the way, you heard it as. Oh, this is a story of this thing that actually happened. And went, wow, this was supposed to be a lesson you were going to learn. That's abuse. I heard it, absolutely had a thought as well, which was, this lady is crazy. This never happened anywhere. And then, of course, we find out it didn't happen. I mean, this wasn't